Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. In continuation of the series on science and technology, Institute of Objective Studies welcome today's speaker, Professor Murthy, and all those present in this webinar. Friends, we are passing through a rough patch of our life, the corona pandemic. Nobody knows where and when it will stop. For the human civilization on this planet, it's not a new phenomena. We have had bout of plague which perished millions of humans. However, the human knew the art of survival and always tried to find the way out of such miseries. At the same time, we are deeply associated with our beliefs and spiritual perceptions, whilst trying to find out comfort in our religious beliefs and spirituality. We also look at the emergence of science and technology with equal optimism and attempt to rationalize between the rationale of science and our beliefs. Perhaps that's the reason that we have today's theme, Can Religion Survive in the Age of Science? Without taking much more time, I again welcome you all and would request Professor Imtiaz Hassan to take over the charge and continue with conducting this program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nizamuddin Sahab. And on behalf of Institute of Objective Studies, I welcome all the audience and especially our speaker, Dr. M.R.N. Murthy. Dr. M.R.N. Murthy is the well-known personality well-known figure in the scientific community because of his great contribution in the area of macromolecular crystallography. And he has been involved in solving several crystal structure, in fact, mainly of the viral proteins. As a student, we are great fan of Dr. Murthy from a long time, and I feel privileged that on this Teachers' Day, we got an opportunity to listen a great teacher from Indian Institute of Science who is going to talk beyond the science. And very few people in India, we found that who can talk beyond the science, because most of the time we have a habit to talk only the science but it's being a scientist, it's our duty to bring the science to the common people, common man, so the common man can easily understand the meaning of science. And this way, in fact, I invited long back Dr. Murthy to my university, and he speak on the several topics related to science, and students got so warmed up, and they are still waiting that next time he will come and speak on this. So we already have a common connection that whenever he comes to Delhi, he must come to my university and deliver talk and enlighten the students. In that way, we are very fortunate that Dr. Murthy is always happy to come. He never said no. So being the platform of Indian Institute of Objective Studies to connect the scientific community to the common people, I welcome Dr. Murthy, and I hope this talk is going to benefit all of us. And thank you, Dr. Murthy, for joining us. And now you can speak and dive in.
Yeah. Thank you, Imtiaz, and also thank you very much for inviting me to this webinar. I am sure it will be a fantastic experience for me. I hope it will be not so unpleasant experience for you as well. I cannot see any one of you. I hope I will come to Institute of Objective Studies someday, yes, where real seminar takes place, and I will be able to see you face to face. And also, you see, after if you give a seminar live, then after the seminar, you will gain many friends and you can interact with them. Unfortunately, this webinar doesn't actually provide. But, one of the benefits of this terrible COVID-19 is that we have come to know that we can have seminars from people without them being there. You see, I have been wanting to visit Jamia for a long time. Somehow it hasn't actually materialized. But with this facility, it is possible to give a seminar or interact with people, at least not as valuable as a direct interaction, but some kind of interaction we can maintain. That is what is one of the benefits of this terrible pandemic. But The subject I want to talk to you today is a kind of strange subject for me also. Most of the time we give seminar to students, high school or college students, and the topic is some aspect of science. You can be just you know the only purpose there is to understand what the details of science. There is no emotion. Science itself is completely devoid of emotion. So it will not be a lecture which triggers any emotional response. But when you bring science and religion together, it is a topic on which each one of you, I am sure, will have a different, your own opinion. So actually, whatever I speak, you may agree, you may disagree, you may strongly disagree, or you may strongly agree. There will be an emotional response. But my own request is that whatever objection you have, you keep it at the end. We will have a discussion. But at the moment, I will just present, say, maybe the scientific view of it. It is not even completely my view. It is a view of scientists in general. So I may not agree with everything that I am going to speak, but in general, I have agreement with most of the things I am going to say. Science is, absolutely marvelous in its own sphere. Science has a sphere of activity where the success of science is unprecedented. So I have a dramatic way of putting this across. Let us say we can resurrect a person from the 10th century, 10th century AD, and he comes to the modern world. Then he will confront a totally unfamiliar world. All of it is because of advancement in science. What are the things he will be amazed? You see, if you take Boeing 747, on the runway weight of the plane is 183,000 kilograms. It's something unimaginable weight, and it flies 10 kilometers above the ground level. How will you lift this mass and make it fly? You see, this is a mass without passengers or luggage. With this, it flies. It's a remarkable thing. I don't think it even maybe people have imagined flying like birds, but nobody would have imagined that we can make safe air travel. Air travel is one of the safest way of traveling, better than buses or trains. And then, the Burj Khalifa is a wonder. See, it is actually almost a kilometer high. The weather condition in the top floors of Burj Khalifa will be quite different. The bottom is a very hot climate most of the year, but you will need a sweater if you go to the top floors. To construct such a building is something that nobody would have imagined earlier. And of course, we have all these. You see, I have actually the picture of Chandrayaan 2, but any space shuttle that we send is a marvel, that we can escape Earth's gravity and go away from Earth is something which we cannot imagine. In fact, if you visit Smithsonian Institute in Washington, D.C., there is a display there. I'm sure some of you who have visited the United States would have seen this. There is actually a tablet there, and under which it is written, please touch. In many museums, you are asked not to touch their exhibits. But in Smithsonian, they actually ask you to touch. That is a rock from the moon. A rock which the space shuttle went to the moon and brought back a stone. And one of that stone is put in this display, and you are supposed to touch. You see, if you touch that, you will have an electrical pulse through your body. It's something that you are touching, something which lay on moon for millions of years, and you are able to touch. It's a feeling you will only enjoy when you experience it. And I am sure all of us know very well, particularly if you have a car and you are used to driving it, you can ask the car to tell you how to go to any place, and it will tell you turn right, left, anywhere in the world. In other words, whatever intellect has been built knows every road in the world. It knows every nook and corner and which shop is where and where you have to turn. Everything it can actually direct you. This is all because of so-called GPS system, and it is actually a great wonder. And we have now seen Saturn's rings from close quarters because a satellite has gone up to Saturn and taken pictures at close quarters of the Saturn's rings. It is something again nobody from 10th century would have even imagined. Well, they are all fantastic things. We also have some not so fantastic things. This is one of the atomic weapons, and the mushroom cloud that we have heard. We have now enough power. Science has given us so much power that we can kill every human being 10 times over with our weapons. And now you have heard that China is planning to double its nuclear arsenal. India has some 200 nuclear arms. Pakistan has 200 nuclear arms. These are enough to finish India and Pakistan completely. Only a mindless person can indulge in such things. But science has given us the terror of destruction. So there are good things, there are bad things. And of course, one of the other wonders of science is that you can peep into our body. If there is any stone or any malignant tissue in the human body, you don't have to open the body. You can see, MRI imaging, magnetic resonance imaging, is a technique which allows us to peep into our body. You can see every nook and corner of our body. It's absolutely amazing. It's a non-destructive exploration of the human body, which is also a wonder. So actually, science is powerful. That I want to bring very forcefully, that science is a very, very powerful enterprise. Of course, science is essentially driven by curiosity, and the world that science deals with is the physical universe. It doesn't deal with your beliefs. So it deals with physical world, and it is based on observations. If you don't quantitate anything, it doesn't have too much scientific value. We want to measure and give a number to our, it goes from every field of biology. I will have some illustration later. Science is quantitative. We want to measure everything. Also, the laws of science, first of all, science is very progressive. New things come, new knowledge keeps accumulating in science. This is very different from certain other fields. I will come to that slightly later. And the laws of science are tentative. Science never says the laws are true. You see, actually, if you take even very fundamental laws, as Newton's law of gravitation, science will not say I am 100% sure. It will say I am almost certain that Newton's laws are valid. But maybe someday we will learn some exception, and then the law is no more valid. So every scientific law is really tentative. It's not, we don't have a dogmatic belief in scientific laws. Therefore, you can say scientific laws are neither true or false. They have, at this moment, they have validity. Tomorrow, they may not have validity. But, science is possible only if you have some faith. Exactly like in religion, you have some faith necessary. Science also based on some a priori assumptions or a priori faith. I will just tell what these faiths are. See, first of all, if you want to do science and you want to learn science and you want to advance science, then you have to believe that the world that we are seeing is real and knowable. If the world is not real, if you believe that the world is all Maya or imagine our mind's imagination, real progress will not be possible. So you have to believe that world is real and knowable. You also have to believe that world follows laws that are universal. Although Newton's laws were discovered on Earth, it's a Coulomb's law. which is the attraction between unlike charges, is not only valid on Earth, it is valid anywhere in the cosmos. So we attribute universality to scientific laws. That is a faith. You haven't gone to a star and a planet around some star which is away from millions of light years away from Earth and tested those laws. But still we believe that the laws are universal. And logic is valid. If you logically, if A is true, you logically deduce that D is true. Then, of course, this is a valid argument. You have to have belief in logic. And of course, you have to also believe that our sense organs do not cheat. What we see or hear or whatever knowledge we get from our sense organs is a reliable source of knowledge. This can be debated. But anyway, that is an assumption which is actually very necessary for science. Finally, scientists believe that the mathematics that has been developed can actually model the world. This last one I will not elaborate. So there are obviously very many things that science has brought us, very many good things that science has brought us. There are also, of course, some bad aspects of science. Let me just go through the good aspects of science, and I will tell you, health, we know, you see, when I was a child, even within a generation, how much change it has happened. When I was a child, every home in our village used to have 10 or 12 children. But still, when people grew old, there will be nobody to look after them because all their children died either in epidemics or something else. Death was so common. But today, our government wants us to have, in fact, people don't want to have many children. They have one or two because they are sure that they will survive, the children. You see, if you have very great doubt that your children may not survive, then you will have more children. But if you are guaranteed that they will survive, then you will limit the number of children to that number which you are sure your economy supports very well. This is generally a concern of parents. So the fact that we can limit our family tells us our belief in science, that our children will be protected. Our health system has improved so much in post-independence, I would say. And of course, transport, there is a metamorphosis. From our village, there was no transport to nearby town. Either you had to walk, most people walked. Sometimes some rich people who had a bicycle went on bicycle. Otherwise, it was unapproachable. But now there are 10 buses that play between our village and town, and it is really amazing. Communication, of course, it's a wonder. The fact that I can give this seminar, it tells you how powerful science is. And, there was great Bengal famine before our independence. Our population was 30 crore, but India couldn't feed its 30 crore. Now it is 100 crore more, and we have to feed most of us. That everybody is balanced diet, but we are able to feed our millions. This is all thanks to science. And we have material comforts, you name it. Your clothes are washed by a machine, your dishes are washed by a machine. We have so much material comfort compared to our previous generations. And we have new ways of recreation. It may be good or bad, I am not commenting, but science has given us new ways of recreation. And of course, science is a great wonder. If you read a good science book on science, it is more interesting than any fiction that you can read. But of course, science has had its ill effects. The fact that a small country like Britain can colonize India is all because they had science and we didn't have science. So science has allowed colonization. And of course, Britishers exploited India to the core. And this exploitation also was possible because of their scientific power. So science can destroy. Actually, the destructive power of science, I probably will come to this slightly later, how, the destruction that you see in the Middle East now, in Syria, for example, is indirectly because of science. In some sense, you can blame science for that. And environmental degradation, some kind of, you see, like for global warming, can actually start, sing the death of humanity. And such degradation is possible because of science. And we have cultivated in every inch of land that is amenable for cultivation on earth. So we don't have more areas for cultivation. If we don't preserve our soil in healthy condition, we are going to face very serious problems. So soil erosion is a big problem, and ecological imbalance. The final thing I want to say, science, most of us are brought up kind of religious atmosphere. And when you study science, there are aspects of science that don't go well with religion. That may actually alienate us. It may give us a sense of alienation. Even if you are not brought up in a non-religious home, science can give you a feeling of alienation for the reasons for which I will come slightly later. Now, contrast it to religion. Religion's main concern is morals, ethics, purpose of life, and our destiny. Obviously, it has to do with our inner life, not the life of the rules that govern outside world. And generally, religions, not all religions, for example, if you take Islam, it is actually based on Quran. So there is revelation to some prophet, and those revelations go into a holy book, and that becomes the basis of the religion. This is not true for Hinduism. We don't have a single holy book which Hindus follow. So it can vary from religion to religion, but in general, you can say revelations, holy books, and spiritual experience of some people. I will come to that. You see, for example, Sufis, they go more by spiritual experience than by holy books or revelations. So there is variation in what is the basis of religion, but in general, they are based on this kind of prior knowledge. Religious knowledge is not quantitative. You cannot say, if you love your wife, how much love? What is the quantity? Is it 1 kilogram, 2 kilogram, whatever it is? You cannot associate a number. If you say, I have faith in God, how deep is your faith? Is it just that you want to, you cannot quantitate it. Unlike science, where everything is quantitative, religious knowledge is only qualitative. It can be, of course, more or less. I'm not saying, see, if you love your family, how deep is your love? That there can be a depth, but you cannot really measure, like that. But in religion, unlike science, I told you, everything is really tentative. The scientific laws are tentative. They can change. But in religion, generally, there is a demarcation of true and false. You can say this is true, this is false. Religion, in most cases, of course, there are some aspects where religion cannot say whether it's true or false. You see, if you say, does God exist? A religious person will say, yes. There is no second answer for that. Like that, religious demarcation are really one or, zero, like true or false. And generally, you see, this is a problem case. Religious people assume that whatever religious belief they have, they are infallible. They will never be proven false. You see, this is totally different from science. Science, even if some law is established in a very fundamental way, you see, after all, earlier people thought atoms are indivisible. But then it was demonstrated that atoms can be divided. It is made up of protons, neutrons, and electrons. And then protons, neutrons, electrons were assumed to be fundamental particles till they broke it up. And now they have 18 fundamental particles. And protons, neutrons are made up of these fundamental particles. So actually, science keeps changing. But religion generally thinks that it is final. What could it be? See, if you ask religious people, they would say that religious beliefs are eternal. For example, you should not steal. It's not going to change no matter what time you take. So the rules of religion are such that they are true forever. So it won't change. That's the argument they give. But science doesn't take that. So actually, in other words, we can say religion is not really progressive. And my main argument in this seminar is that religion also should be progressive. That's the difference I want to make. In general, religion has not been progressive or tentative. You cannot say, I will change my religious outlook a little bit to adjust to the modern times. Uh, that kind of confidence and belief should come in. Just like science has good and bad, there are good and bad aspects of religion. See, religion gives mental peace for people who have really deep faith in religion. Of course, if you don't have deep faith, it may not matter. Religion may not make a lot of difference to you. And religion also gives you a sense of purpose. What do you want to do in life? This is the question. You see, what do I want to do in life? What does it, what am I doing? Whatever I am doing, is it valuable? So it gives you moral values. It defines your ethics. You will be charitable. You will be free of ego, jealousy, and pride. These are, if you are a truly religious person, I'm talking about a person who has I am sure all of you are familiar. See, when religion plays economic role, people have a tendency to act as though they are very religious for economic benefits. They don't have really deep faith in religion. Then, of course, they will be jealous, they will be immoral, religious. Just because somebody outwardly appears religious, you cannot take for granted that they are deeply religious. There's a big difference between appearance and reality. I am talking about people of real faith. Then these qualities you will see. I have seen people who are very religious, who are really, truly moral, ethical, charitable, and extremely good people. Religion has made them that good. But on the contrary, religion, I don't know. You see, you have to call them religious because they practice, maybe whatever religion prescribes, they practice all those things. So you should call them religious. But they could be very intolerant. And interreligious violence is something that has shaken the world for times immemorial. If you don't feel for it, I think we are very insensitive to the ills of the world. So interreligious violence is something we have to be very aware. And wars have been fought in the name of religion. Actually, Portuguese were in Goa. The kind of violence they showed, the priests who came from Portugal would torture people if they don't get converted to Christianity. There has been so much injustice there. So that religious intolerance has been felt, has made dramatic effect. And ethnic cleansing. You heard of China, uh, uh, putting millions of Muslims in the western Chinese region to concentration camps like places. So this ethnic cleansing, Bangladesh, refugees from Myanmar who have come to Bangladesh. So this ethnic cleansing has been going on all around the world. And you can exploit people, you can discriminate people. Somebody doesn't belong to my religion, so he has to be condemned. He's a bad man. Somebody belongs to my religion, no matter what he is, he's a good man. So this kind of prejudice, religion can actually support. Sometimes, I am talking about people who pretend to be religious, but who actually practice discrimination. Well, actually, why does science make some people feel alienated? See, science has very little to say, at least directly. I will come back to that indirectly, what it can say. Directly, it has very little to say about values. What is value? We attach value to many things. Friendship is very valuable. Well, morality similarly. We have to have some moral values. We have to treat people with courtesy. Science has nothing to do with that. Science doesn't accept existence of gods or angels. And if you ask, does God answer prayers? Science has some different answer. It doesn't say no. If you have deep faith, you may actually get some benefit, but it is not a God who is changing it. It is your psychology. Why are we here? It doesn't give any answer. What is the value of life? It doesn't give any answer. What are our duties? These Science has nothing to do with these uh, items. So it's religion which actually gives you some kind of answer to this. But that religion, we have to make it very dependable. Otherwise, religion will have problem. So the problems with religion mainly are because all major religions in the world were founded before the development of modern science. Because of that, it is possible that whatever uh, religion described the status of the world, the status of humanity, because of the additional scientific knowledge we have gained, may actually clash. It will be very naive to assume that any religion will be completely consistent with modern science. I know that there have been efforts everywhere, whether it's Christianity or Islam or Hinduism, to say that our old religion is completely in harmony with modern science. I think that that's kind of cheating ourselves. If there is a conflict, then we have to face it with courage. Yes, there is a conflict. How do I resolve it? That I think will be much more fruitful. But there are other problems other than just conflict between a religion that was founded thousands of years ago and modern science that was developed just over the past 500 years. The world itself has shrunk to a village now. See, actually here is the proof. Rajesh is in United States and he is in our seminar. That way the world is shrunk to a village. Not only that we can communicate that easily with people from all around the world, I can have breakfast in Bombay and take a flight and have lunch in London and then take a flight from there and have dinner in New York. This is unprecedented. So the world has shrunk to a village. Also, you see, when actually in 2019, in 1919, about 100 years ago, there was another pandemic. It killed millions of people in Europe and the United States. But it was nothing. It was not even, probably most people in India did not know that such a pandemic is happening. But, in 9/11, when in New York, the Twin Towers were actually brought down by two plane crashes. I actually saw the plane crashing to that building from Bangalore. In other words, what happens in one place is immediately known all around the world, and it affects people. What the virus that escaped, in some sense, in Wuhan, has now brought the whole world to this. In 6 months, the world is a different world. What it was 8 months ago and now is completely different. This can happen in the modern world. It would never have happened in the old world. In some sense, it is also related to the progress of civilization. When humans lived in forest in small groups, if there is a infectious disease, the group will die. Probably that would consist of maybe 10 to 50 people. But the other people in the world would be safe. But now all of us are linked so closely that any problem we have, it can be, it can trouble somebody else in Guatemala, you see, for example. So the whole world is a small unit. And you see, it also happens that followers of different religion live in close proximity. If you take a cosmopolitan city like New York or Chicago, you will find people of every country, every religion, and every ethnic group living in the same city. This is very different from what was many centuries ago. Also, life has become more complex. It's so complex because of science, advancement in science. Life has become more complex. I am sure some of you of my age would have worried about your children or grandchildren using the internet too much. The content on the internet are not always healthy. And how do they use the internet? This is a worry which, centuries ago people would never have felt. So that way, life has become more complex now. So all these would require some actually refinement in our religious outlook, and we have to have courage to do that. That's the point I want to stress. Of course, there are instances when science and religion have conflicted. Then do you take sides? I'm a scientist. Do I take the side of science? You are a religious person. Do you take a stand from the religious side? And should we fight? How do we resolve the conflict between science and religion? Can we actually come up with some suggestion which is good for reconciling science and religion? You see, religion can step in the domain of science and say what science is saying is I won't accept. Science can step in the domain of religion. You see, it may try to prescribe a morality to humans. Does it have the license to do that? That we can explore. Unfortunately, the seminar is limited to 1 hour. I don't think 1 hour I can cover much of how science can come into the domain of religion. It has come, but how has it come and what are the consequences? I won't have too much time to deal on that, but I will just mention a little bit. Another problem is that, as I said, religion is static. The religious values don't change from time to time. Of course, the argument of religious people is that these values are eternal. Just that you should not steal was true 10,000 years ago, it will be true 10,000 years in the future. So it doesn't change. It is okay. Religion need not change. But I think there is the problem if you take a too static a religion, whereas science is tentative. If there is any error in science, mistake in any of the scientific laws, science is ever ready to correct itself. Similar spirit, at least in some measure, has to be with religion. If there is a problem, maybe that was okay for that time, and now things have changed, let me actually change. These religious leaders or whatever it is the religion has to adopt. And you see, if religion becomes too dominant, it could suppress individual freedom. And of course, the methods of science and the methods of religion are not always compatible. That's what I call incommensurate methods. But we have to reconcile these. How do we do that is the big question. Well, there has been conflict between science and religion. It is not recent. The conflict is really old. For example, about little more than 2000 years ago, Socrates was preaching some kind of, he was a great preacher. Although he didn't write anything, Plato has written about Socrates' dialogues. His dialogues were so very revolutionary that people of Athens were very disturbed, and they finally arrested him, and he was made to drink poison, and they killed him. And Galileo, you see, he actually proposed that sun is the center of solar system and planets go around the sun. But the belief till then, the church dogma was that earth is the center of the universe and everything revolves around the earth. The church was so angry on Galileo that he was actually put on house arrest. You see, this has had a very bad impact on Christianity. It has lost many of its followers by sticking too much to geocentrism. it has lost its followers. I will show you some statistics for that. And then Charles Darwin proposed the theory of evolution. Again, it was considered as anti-religious, and immediately Darwin was portrayed as somebody who is more like a monkey rather than a human being. But I will tell a little bit later. The worlds, the physical and biological worlds. I will very briefly, I know I always have this problem. I try to spend too much time in the beginning and I lose time. Maybe as Imtiaz should organize another seminar to complete whatever I'm saying. Anyway, see, science has allowed us to gaze into the cosmos. You know, we have all kinds of telescopes which allow us to see the world millions of light years away. So we have come to know that the world consists of billions of galaxies, and each galaxy has billions of stars. And we can actually find out what is in the stars by analyzing the starlight on Earth. Sitting on Earth, I can tell you what is the material that is there in any star. They are made up of essentially hydrogen and helium. And of course, sun is the source of all the energy that we use on Earth. And we have a solar system. And the Earth has the atmosphere, the environmental condition which allows life to exist. There is no other planet on which we can make our home. You know, they're all terrible conditions, either too cold, too hot, or not solid. So Earth is the only home we have. If we spoil Earth, we have no home. You know, we cannot go to another planet. See, earlier there were, you know, when Europe discovered America and they killed all the Red Indians there, the Native Americans there, and made their colony. There is no more land left on Earth to make a new colony. And, you know, we can destroy Earth, but we have no other place to go. That we have to realize. And according to science, the universe itself started 13.8 billion years ago. And then it gives you a history of how life has, how the universe has evolved. It is the evolution of the universe. They say it started with a big bang. And then atoms formed after 3 minutes. And then after 300,000 years, the stars started getting formed. And about 5 billion years ago, life started on Earth. This is the history of Earth. Similarly, science has allowed us, we go to the cosmos on one hand. On the other hand, to the lower end, bacteria was seen for the first time when microscope was developed. Then we have electron microscope, which allows to see viruses, which are much smaller than viruses. And this is the picture of a virus called Zika virus. I have a nice story to tell about Zika virus, but not in this seminar. And then, Imtiaz knows this technique very well, the so-called X-ray diffraction technique, which allows us to see individual atoms. We can see the atom, and the model of the atom is that there is a nucleus and electrons go around this. And we can break this atom and get energy if the atom is of very high atomic number or atomic mass. But we can actually fuse atom and get energy, like fuse hydrogen atoms and convert them to helium and get energy. So we are learning to use atoms in the ways that we want, if you want energy, we can use. Now there are, see France, for example, most of the energy requirement of France come from atomic energy. But, the fusion reaction hasn't been mastered. If we master it, we will solve the energy problem of the world. And we see water has a structure like this. All that I am trying to point out, that we can now see individual atoms in molecules. And there is a molecule called deoxyribonucleic acid. This molecule is there in every one of our cells. I am assuming that not all of you are scientists, so I am, what I am telling is so elementary that it is redundant for scientists. But for non-scientists, I am trying to present it in very few sentences, the greatest discoveries of science. There is a molecule of DNA in every one of our cells. The DNA has in it, it has stored in it the information of our genetic characters. For example, my skin color is specified by my DNA. See, because my DNA has come from my parents, whose DNA has come from their parents, like that, my DNA will never give me the complexion of, let us say, a North European or a Central African person. You see, I am brown, not white or black. So that, starting from that, my eye color, my hair color is specified by the molecule of DNA. Whether I am going to be diabetic or not is going to be specified partially by DNA and partially by lifestyle. So DNA codes for our genetic information, and we know the atomic structure of DNA. So the classical physics gives a picture of the universe which is very mechanical. If you say, why do I live like this? Because the world has decided that I live like this. You have no free will, for example. There is no concept of free will in the classical science. So everything happens because it has to happen. See, you cannot ask why Earth is going around the sun. It has no option. You see, gravitation demands that it should go round the sun. Same way, the way we act in our life is actually a natural law. It is subject to scientific laws. Because of that laws, I act this way. Not because I choose to act. There is nothing to choose. There is no free will. That is the classical physics. That is what I actually have depicted here. This is a complex machine which works in a complex way. Its complexity comes from the attachment of several wheels. If this wheel turns clockwise, another wheel turns counterclockwise, it decides the entire motion of the machine. Like that, we are a machine, however complex we are. And this machine functions because of the interactions between the molecules in our body. It's not because we want to do it. We are destined to do it. In other words, the history of our life was written at the Big Bang itself. So we are just automatons acting out our role. This is the classical physics. But the modern physics makes some difference, because in modern physics, given an identical present situation, you can have more than one future situations. See, in other words, the causality is not very strict. You see, in classical physics, given the present day situation, the future day is fixed. It cannot change. It will inevitable it goes. For example, if you let go of a stone, it will fall to the earth. The stone cannot say, I am not prepared to go to the earth, I will stay here, because stone obeys mechanical law. Even our body obeys mechanical law. So what we do with our body also is like a stone falling. It is not because we decide to do it. It is because the laws demand it. This is a little bit changed in modern physics, and you can actually have a little bit different future, although the present is the same. But it doesn't really take away things. It would still make us lack of, free will. It will not actually, it's very difficult to defend free will in the context of science. But now let me come to something else, which has a real challenge. I have to hurry up. I know it's not, I'm not going to do full justice to my discussion here. Very long time ago, our Earth, this is a scientific story. You take it or leave it. This is a story of life that science tells you. Long, long ago, about 5 billion years ago, our Earth was devoid of life. There were volcanoes, there were, incessant rain, there were lightning, and Earth was in a very hostile environment. And in this Earth, somehow life has started. And the most amazing thing in the universe is the human brain. There is no material that actually in complexity and function equals human mind. The whole cosmos, whether you take stars or galaxies, are really, really very simple compared to a human brain. It is the most complex substance you can see. How did this come about? From the lifeless earth, how did the brain come about? The story of science is, of course, Darwin's hypothesis. Somehow life started about 3 billion years ago, and natural selection kept on changing the life forms, and finally man has descended from ape-like ancestors. This is the story of evolution. Well, this evolutionary account immediately was not consistent with Christianity. For example, I'm not going to tell you, this is Genesis. You open Bible, first page, you will get Genesis. But I will only quote the last line. Then God said, let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over fish in the sea and birds in the sky. So man was the center point. The God's real concern was man. But you see, evolution put man as another animal on the planet, no better than an insect. So that, you know, brought down man from his pedestal. So this was not acceptable. So immediately there was opposition to Darwin's theory. People depicted Darwin. That opposition has started till today. But you see, if you are a biologist, Imtiaz will know this very well. If you are a biologist, you will encounter something that I don't think it proves Darwin theory, but it is something in support of Darwin's theory. See, we are made up of certain types of molecules, which are shown here. You know, all these colored panels show the so-called amino acids. It doesn't matter whether you take a bacteria or human, we are made up of the same molecules. And these molecules are converted, one molecule is converted to another by the so-called metabolic pathways. These pathways are also very similar in humans and bacteria. So the secret of life is that all our genetic characters are stored in DNA, which eventually is converted to a protein. And the protein are the workhorses of our cells, which actually give the shape to the cell, decide how the cell is going to function. So in this, nowhere you find any divinity. You know, these are all mechanical processes. I will skip this for want of time. Another information it gives, if you take human genes, they are 95% identical to chimp genes. You know, we are 95% chimps, like that. But you see, in other words, it's another evidence for Darwin's theory of evolution. Well, in fact, you can use this genes of organisms to construct a tree on how these organisms have evolved. For example, biologically, chimps are closest to us. Gorilla is a little bit away. See, this relationship between humans and animals is something that has really hurt many religious people. But now there is so much evidence for Darwinian theory that how religion can reconcile with Darwinian hypothesis is a challenge to religious people. But I will just actually tell you the Neo-Darwinian hypothesis. I unfortunately I have to hurry up. You see, uh, there is, you know, this is Richard Dawkins, a very vociferous supporter of evolutionary theory. If you go to Google and put Richard Dawkins and that's put lectures by Richard Dawkins, it will actually show you about 50 lectures. He has talked about evolution and its implication. Anyway, he is a very, very strong defender and promoter of evolutionary ideas. It's fun to listen to him, although it is very caustic. Anyway, he has written many books which are very readable. Say The Blind Watchmaker, Selfish Gene, Extended Phenotype, River Down Eden. They are very readable books that give you a modern perspective on evolutionary theory. And there are people who have made such statements. Nothing in biology makes sense except in the light of evolution. In other words, evolution is a cornerstone of all biological thinking and of science. If religion and evolutionary theory are in conflict, evolutionary theory might consider a little bit about religion, and religion has to consider evolutionary theory. Because it is such a strong theory, if religion is contradicting, then we will have to think what we should do. Of course, there are people, actually, you see, this Michael Behe is a quite a well-known scientist, professor in United States. He has written a book against Darwin's theory. So you can actually argue against Darwin theory, but the argument has to be very tight. If you try to just say, the creationist, the so-called creationist arguments, it will be very worthless. You have to have as strong an argument as Darwin's theory if you want to oppose it. Of course, if you want to accept it, how do you change it? This is something that you have to think about. I am skipping many details. If you have science education in a country, it will change our view. There is no doubt about it. See, I have a plot here. It's from the web. You can see, this tells you how many people don't rely on religion anymore and rely on science for their life. Various countries. See, 76% of people in France think that science is more influential than religion. Whereas if you take Pakistan, it is really the dominant view is that religion is more influential than science. See, India, somewhere here, it is more on it leans towards more on science than on religion. So, scientific education clearly comes in the way of religious belief. You see, and in fact, in India, I have some statistics which is actually very old. If you do the same statistics today, the numbers will be different. See, this is a question that was asked to many Indian scientists. But the first spacecraft in India, when it was launched, space mission, they actually went to Tirupati and requested Lord Venkateshwara to make it a success. You know that this is a very laughing matter in scientific circles. Do you believe, people were asked, do you believe that it was necessary to go to a temple and pray that your space mission be successful? Do you approve or disapprove? There were 14% of the people who approved it strongly, but 33% of the people who disapproved it strongly. Obviously, you see, praying God to achieve something scientific feat to be a success is considered absolutely unacceptable by more people. But you ask the same thing. If you have to face an examination or you want to get your daughter married, do you pray, God, that let me successfully get my daughter married? Well, there you see the answer may not be the same proportion. But if you actually, I don't want to present this because I have no time. In general, Indians are tending more towards science than religion. Well, uh, you see, actually, I have actual statistics here. In India, I don't believe in God. We're 12%. I know God really exists and I have no doubts about it. We're 26%. So there were more people, at least twice more people, who strongly believed in God than those who say, I don't believe that God exists. That was a minor proportion. But if you take France, there will be 70% here. I don't believe in God. And maybe less than a 10 or less percent if the people who say, I know God exists and I have no doubts about it. And this actually happens because of the conflict between science and religion. If we don't reconcile, more and more people will go onto the other side. So the scientific materialism says there are no gods, angels, and devils. There is no good, evil, or moral or immoral. See, it tells you that Mahatma Gandhi and Nathuram say there is no meaning in saying one is good and another is bad. In an absolute sense, there is no good or evil. There is no afterlife. There is no heaven or hell. There are no physical realities. There is no meaning to life. Consciousness and mind are only epiphenomena. We think that we are conscious. It's more of an illusion. You see, we have freedom to act is an illusion. That's what science tells us. It's called scientific materialism. And the people who support this, you see, you can put Daniel Dennett or Sam Harris or Richard Dawkins on the web, and you can listen to their lectures, very powerful lectures, who actually propagate scientific materialism. So actually, in religion, you ask these questions. How did the world, you see, these are the main questions of religion. How did the world originate? How did life originate? Is there a God? What is the role of God in our life? And what is the meaning of our existence? And what is what is it that makes our existence worthwhile? What do we have to do in life? What is the purpose? And on what basis we decide ethical values, good, ethical values. These are the questions that religion has to. It is a domain of religion. It's not the domain of science, and religion has to find answers to this without confronting well-established laws of science. This, I think, every religion has a need. I think I have almost come to the end of my time. I have come to the end of my time. I will just complete it in a few minutes. Religion needs to reconcile with, first, of course, evolution is a very big challenge to religion. It has to reconcile with evolution and, of course, some concepts from astronomy. So religion will survive. See, the challenges for religion is that science education is bound to become universal. Every whatever is your religious faith, you want your children to be educated in science because that gives them a job and economic comfort. So science education is bound to become universal. When science education, when you impart good science education, there will be a conflict between the religion and science. How do they reconcile? See, they may go all over to the scientific side and say religion has no meaning. That is what has happened in many parts of the world, where science education is really very advanced. So this conflicting worldview will hurt religion if religion doesn't reconcile with science. And all right, I won't actually spend more time on that. So there are actually challenges to religion. I think I will actually. Another thing is that because religions were formed long ago, it actually doesn't give certain answers to certain questions. Like, you see, tobacco was not there at the time of Prophet Muhammad. Should you smoke or not smoke? You won't find an answer in Quran. You have to find an answer elsewhere. But the last slide I want to show you, about which I have an intense feeling. This is something which is very emotional for me. See, our country will be peaceful and it will have, people will be happy only if Hindus and Muslims in India have empathy, respect, and mutual understanding, without which everybody in the country is going to be hurt. We have to achieve this, and I really appreciate that your institute is working. I read everything about your institute. It is actually is what is close to my heart, mutual understanding between religions. In fact, actually, Islam is a very simple religion. If you want to be a good Muslim, all that you have to believe in, say, God and Prophet, and you have to pray 5 times a day, and you have to fast in the month of Ramadan, and give a percent of your honestly earn money to the poor, and in your lifetime, if you possible, make a trip to Hajj pilgrimage. But Hinduism is very much more complex. And how do we understand these two? How do Muslims understand Hinduism and Hindus understand Muslims? I want to really know, because Muslims are, so many in India. How many Hindus have read Quran? This is a question which you can ask and you can easily find out. But I would think that you have not fulfilled your duty if, as a Hindu, you have not read Quran. And similarly, I would think that every Muslim should read, say, Bhagavad Gita. So this may actually increase empathy and respect for each other. But whatever it is, if we don't learn to respect each other, I think our society is going to be in big trouble. Well, that is India. But if you take Middle East, Shia and Sunni, This is, I think, you see, Saudi Arabia, which is essentially Sunni, will not hesitate to destroy Iran, which is Shia, which is actually a terrible thing. And I think there has to be an understanding. Similarly, Sunni and Sufi, there are some small differences. The differences are minuscule, but whatever it is, we have to respect the difference. We have to respect plurality in the world. In the whole world, if you take Africa, it is actually Muslim versus Christian. We have so much trouble in our life as is. This pandemic is troubling so much. Why bring in additional troubles? Nature itself gives us enough trouble. Let us not add to this trouble because of our prejudice. The world itself, you see, actually, if you take, for example, Syria, this ISIS has killed so many people. Whom have they killed? You see, the extremist people and people of normal faith. People of normal faith are 99.9%. The extremists are a very small percent, but they cause havoc. All this can be avoided, should be avoided by actually maybe the kind of activity that your organization does, and there should be other organizations. How many people really come together and discuss that we should not? Actually 10 years ago, I will finish. I am so emotional about it. I am sure, I am sorry, I'm taking a little bit more time. I'll tell you one instance, and then I will stop. 10 years ago, in France, a newspaper published a cartoon of Prophet Muhammad. This is extremely bad in Islam. You cannot actually portray the Prophet in any way. And some people got very angry and went and shot some people from the press. First of all, you see, this is done in the name of freedom of speech. I can do what I want. But of course, freedom of speech, there is also a moral responsibility, personal responsibility. See, there is a conflict between freedom of speech and responsibility. Can you really put some picture which actually is against the sentiments of, say, a billion people on earth? This is a question which I think you should really carefully think. But anyway, there was extremist attack and some people were killed. But did it achieve peace and understanding? 10 years afterwards, just this month, the same journal, magazine, has put the same picture again. You think about it. It's so grotesque. Why do all these things? Why get people killed? Why do you hurt sentiments of other people? I leave it to you. This is a very personal view in the sense every one of you will have your own view on this. Can you actually do something that hurts the sentiment? There was a time when some company in Europe, I think, put a picture of Ganesha on their toilet paper. You see, actually, can you do this? And then they withdrew it, of course, after it was opposed. They didn't lead to any murder. But anyway, you see, I am free to put what I want. The picture of Ganesha, colorful picture of Ganesha on toilet paper will look good. But can you put it? This is a question we have to decide. But my final plea, which is that let us not worry about the whole world. There are many problems with the world. In India, we want people to be peaceful, prosperous, and happy. And that can actually be achieved only if we have mutual respect and empathy and understanding. So I really appreciate the kind of work your organization is trying to do. See, you are a Muslim, you be a good Muslim. If somebody is a Hindu, let him be a good Hindu. Let us accept that these are two different ways of life. I don't think we have to say one is superior to the other. There is nothing like that. There are different ways of life, and each one will live in the way they feel all right. This is what I want to propagate. And, for I mentioned at the beginning that ever since Babri Masjid was demolished, On the same day, we formed a group in Bangalore, and we went to all the schools in Bangalore. And at least for a few years after the demolition of the masjid, we actually spoke to students, high school students, how important it is to be free of prejudice about your religion, about your caste. Actually, I have much to say in this, but I unfortunately have run out of time. You see, when people get educated, you see, in our institute, there are many intercaste, inter-religion marriages. They all go fine because people have better understanding of how to adjust with people of different faiths. We have to be together. If we can actually spend time together, then we know that each of us are good individuals. You see, there is nothing like bad religion and good religion. All religions have majority good people only. Only a minority of them are not so good, and that is true of every religion. So this understanding, simple understanding, it doesn't take much to understand this. Why it doesn't come to some people? See, what happens is that the small number of people who are prejudiced matter, whereas large number of people who are friendly and nice do not matter. They just lead their life comfortable, minding their business. So I would very much, I would like to conclude by saying I appreciate your organization, and I hope someday I will come to your Institute of Objective Studies, not to Jamia Millia. Jamia Millia also I will come, but this institute, I am particularly interested in your work, and if I can contribute to, say, Hindu-Muslim understanding and mutual respect, I would be most happy. That is the reason why I said this is a very special occasion for me, and I profoundly thank Imtiaz for inviting me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Murthy. Such a nice lecture, fantastic lecture, and you kept the balance of religion and the science together. And your conclusive part is excellent. And being educated people of society, it's responsibility for all of us to come forward to remove this kind of thing from the society, that the people are fighting on the basis of religion. Rather, the both the religion, especially in India, in the context of India, Hindu and Muslim, teaches us the message of love, faith, and all these things. But we are very sad that these days, in fact, the things are going to emerge more and more. But it's of course duty of all the educated people of the society that should come forward to fight this kind of issue and make the, because the most of the people, 99% people are good people from both the side. Only 1% fraction of people are creating problem, and that's what we are getting the different dimension. And in that context, I think this is the best platform that we call the people from the different society, different discipline and science and all the way, so come together to fight this problem of the society. And we can think beyond the religion also, and there should be a balance between the science and religion. And now the session is open to the question and answer, and there are many questions. I think Dr. Murthy, are you able to read the question and answer in your screen so you can directly answer the question?
Yes, and also, you see, I have given my email. So if there is any criticism, comment, question, you can always send me an email.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Murthy sir, I have a question because I am sitting in New York, so I should get a priority to ask questions.
Yes, and also you go to sleep very soon.
Yes. So the one thing actually which I always had in my mind, that whatever we have had in our society, one thing is the religious conflict, inter-religious conflict, but we also have had the biggest issue is the intra-religious issues, where we have the caste, and even Islam has many castes. But whether this religious conflict or intra-religious conflict, how and do you think it is affected a lot our country's economy somehow?
Oh, Rajesh, I concentrated on different religions. Of course, you see, it is as serious a problem. If you take Hindus, they are divided into many castes. And that is, I think, is a very, very terrible thing. It actually, the way it affects is that, you see, if you take Karnataka, with which I am very familiar, you see there are two sects, Lingayat and Vokkaligas.
Yeah.
You see, they are equal in number, about, both are major populations. So once a Lingayat, Lingayats vote for Lingayats only. Vokkaligas vote for Vokkaligas. So once Vokkaliga becomes chief minister, another time Lingayata becomes chief minister. And they actually, because they favor their group. So the politics is not done fairly. You see, it is not good for all. It's good for only their people. This problem exists everywhere. Only actually, when you say Muslims are a minority, if you actually take individual castes in Hindus, they don't get along with each other. So if you take the population of these castes, many times is smaller than the Islamic population. So actually it is strange. But I will tell you, this caste system is very bad. It affects our politics first, and through politics it affects our economy. So we have to eradicate this. Actually, it is so bad, this caste system. It has influenced Islam. You see, in Islam, everybody is equal. But this equality comes only when they go to the Kaaba during the Ramadan, during the Hajj pilgrimage. Everybody is dressed like Indian Brahmins, with a white dress and go. That equality. But when you come to India, even Muslims have a kind of not caste system, class system. You see, if you take Kashmiris, probably they feel that they should marry only Kashmiris. If they marry outside Kashmir, they are kind of adulterated Muslims. They have somewhat low opinion of them. So the caste system is there. Hindus have influenced Islam. Christianity, there is a. See, Kerala Christians don't marry outside Kerala. So the caste system has penetrated every society in India. And this has to be broken. Of course, Hindus, it first is the most strongest. So that has to be broken. But this inequality has to be broken in every community. It is not just confined. Actually, there are scheduled caste people or scheduled group people in Islam because they are kept very low. Kashmir, there is reservation for Muslims who are SC Muslims. It's very pathetic when the Prophet has said all humans are equal, you discriminate. So this is there in our society, and that's a completely separate matter. Today's seminar,
No, definitely, because I have seen it, because I am from there and I have seen my
of
parents.
course, I know very well. Say, let me tell you. See, Rajesh is a self-made man. He comes from a totally uneducated, backward family, but has done world-class research. I am sure the talent is universal. It is there in any caste, any group. It doesn't. Only you have to. Opportunity is what is different, not the caste. So if you don't give the equal opportunity, obviously, see, because rural and urban divide, that is also there. Urban people get more opportunities. Rural people don't get. But that at least is not institutionalized, whereas caste system is an institution, and we have to work against it. As much as Hindu-Muslim unity, we have to work against caste system within Hinduism. But that is a subject matter for a separate seminar.
That's true.
For bringing it up.
Professor Hamid have several questions. So, Professor Hamid, can you ask your question?
Yeah, sir, it was really a very enlightening lecture, and a lot of information and a lot of new insights you have given. But there are several questions which just arise in our minds when you are talking in those terms that there is hardly any compatibility between religion and science. And I feel that in the ignorant Arabs, there was no science. When Islam came, it gave impetus to science and they became scientists. So we could say that religion has been always opposing science. It was in the case of West, where the church has opposed science. But in case of Islam, as Professor Abdul Salam of Pakistan, who is the Nobel laureate, he says that there had been no conflict between Islam and science when it came there. And there in Quran, there are so many verses which pertain to scientific facts. But there is clash between the philosophy of science
and religion in many cases. So we should not confound these things, science with philosophy of science, religion with philosophy of science. So the religion has its own philosophy, science has its own philosophy. And clashes among the philosophies of science, not in science and technology as such. This is the first observation. And second observation, sir, is so far as you have mentioned about evolution, there have been many people who have objected to evolution, and it has not solved many problems. So the Lamarck's missing link that has been not bridged this gap, and there is a lot of controversy between creationism and evolutionism, and Dawkins and Hitchens and Sam Harrison and others, they could not convince scholars about the consciousness, where from the consciousness comes. So in this way, evolution does not solve this problem. So I don't think so that science can solve all the problems pertaining to the origin of life or the universe, which has been complained even by the people like Stephen Hawking. He says once philosophy was talking these issues, but science is silent about these things, and even philosophy is not talking about that. And religion can solve these problems, and we should not confuse all religions with the Christianity and the church. So there have been different responses to science from different religions, and we make a generalization that all religions are against science or all science is against religion. So these are some of the observations and some of the questions I want to get a reply from you, sir. But the lecture was really enlightening, and your last session, that was very good, that we have to make understanding and interest, and you'll be happy to know that Institute of Objective Studies has formed a forum for this, forum for interreligious understanding, and I have been given the responsibility of this convenership, and inshallah we will definitely like you to be also part of us and guide us.
Oh, certainly, I would love to.
Thank
Thank you very much for your comments, but a very brief response. See, this the difference between, you see, because religion was founded long ago, there may be, you see, evolution. We will that's a too large a discussion. But if there is a conflict, how do you reconcile? If you don't reconcile, see, either you give an argument which is convincing, or you change. What I am saying is that see, for example, that the geocentric and heliocentric nature of the world, if church had realized that maybe science is right in saying, you see, now we know that even the sun is not at the center of the universe. Our sun, solar system itself is going around the center of the galaxy. So even sun is not the center of the universe. But anyway, if church had realized that its narrow view of Earth being the center of the universe is incorrect, it could have come up with that suggestion. You see, science has no problem if you say you have to follow a virtuous life. You have to follow, you have to be charitable and you have to be compassionate. Science has nothing to say with that. There is no conflict there. I am not saying everything in science contradicts everything in religion. There are spheres where religion prescribes. You see, values, for example, science doesn't have values. You cannot prove that being helpful to others is a scientific truth. There is no science in it. It's not a discussion matter of science at all. It's completely outside the sphere of science. So their religion can have a say. See, there is no conflict there. But when there is a conflict, for example, evolutionary theory, see, God created the universe. According to science, there is no God. So here there can be a contradiction, and you have to reconcile it to the satisfaction of those who study science. See, if you don't study science and you are satisfied with the religious explanation, there won't be any problem. But if you are studying science very seriously and doing, let's say, research in science, then it will be a conflict in you. You see, it is a personal conflict for you. If you are a man of faith, I was brought up in a very religious home. So when I studied science, I found that many things that I have learned in childhood conflict with science. And that conflict I have to resolve for myself. It is also for the general community. If there is an occasion, all that I am saying is that if there is a case for conflict, then you resolve it through your society, through dialogue, through the conversation. But if you don't reconcile, it's going to turn some people off. That's what I want to say. Thank you for your comment anyway.
Muhammad Alam have one question. Muhammad Alam, you can ask.
Yes, sir. Are you listening me or not?
Yes, yes, I can listen to you.
Sir, I have gone through your lecture and found it very enlightened one. But there is something I would like to say that
Yes,
why we try to study science and religion differently? Why we not see the religion? Science is a manifestation of religion. Why we always try to prove that these are the two different ways and we which can't be meet? But if we see the religion in the pure form, then we would find that somehow science is manifesting what the religion is saying. If you see the Quran, if you have you studied the Quran, sir, and if
yes,
you see
cover to cover.
so naturally, so you would find that there are so many laws in Quran which certified the scientific view right now. So my question is that instead of seeing the science and religion differently, we should see both them to manifesting each other. One thing. Second thing is, sir, that when it's come to the freedom of speech, I think
Yes,
that the freedom of speech ends where the rights of other people starts.
that's
But we
why
are
I said
finding that
freedom
the
of.
West advocates the freedom of speech in an unlimited way, and as a result, what happened? This problem is coming. The another things what I have noted in you that is about the theory of evolution.
Yes,
That if we see the theory of evolution, then there is no concept of God. And if someone in religion having a concept of the God, so what's the problem of the scientific people to force the other one to not accept the God? If any people or if any group of people having a God and if he happy with his their God, then what is the need to ask him to not not the accept the God and reject the God? So this is one point. Second point is that sir, science is saying that if there is a no God, then how this world has come to into that's in evolutionary form or has come to existence? Do you think that without any subject this world could be what in a present time? So this is I want to listen from your side. Thank you
yeah.
very much, sir.
Actually, first I want to point out that I mentioned that freedom of speech also has to be simultaneously considered with individual responsibility. I am not saying that I know that I wouldn't accept publishing Prophet's picture as a cartoon. It is actually hurting the sentiments of billions of people, and it should not be done. I have no doubt in my mind that what was done was wrong. You see, freedom of expression is there, but freedom of expression doesn't mean that you can blame somebody. That's freedom. I will blame you or I will insult you. No, no, no. It comes with a responsibility. And individual used in the pretext of freedom of expression flouting his responsibility. I don't agree with what was done is right. I was only trying to say that we have to be sensitive. That is okay. Now, coming to, you see, if you say, ask, is there a God? Science will say, it is not my question. See, science deals with physical universe. It can tell you why water flows down a hill, and it can tell you why water boils at some fixed temperature. It doesn't tell you whether it is good to be good or it doesn't matter. See, questions of morality are not dealt with by science. It has no answer. See, if you want to believe that being charitable is good, believe that. It is not anti-scientific or unscientific. See, science has very little to say. Even existence of God, science cannot say, I did an experiment and so I have proved that God doesn't exist. There is no experiment to disprove God, or there is no experiment to prove the existence of God. It is actually your faith, and that faith is a part of religion. Science has nothing to do with it. But you see, science, one of the strongest theories now in biological science is the theory of evolution. And you see, if you want to believe that a God is necessary for creation, I actually want to show you. I didn't have time. See, this picture. I hope you can see this picture. what I have shown is that a modern aircraft control panel, it's so complex, it's a say Boeing aircraft panel. How can materials on earth, silicon, iron, plastic, there is no plastic. Plastic also has to be, it's not, dust is not plastic. How can it get converted to these materials, come together and make this engine? This is a matter of complexity. Can this complexity arise out of nothing? Unless there is a creator behind it. So that this book is an argument against evolution. See, you don't have to believe evolution, but then have an argument that is scientific. If you say evolution I want to oppose because it is opposed to my faith, then your argument is weak. You see, I very much recommend you to read this book, Darwin's Black Box. Michael Behe, he is a professor of biochemistry in US. He has written why he does not believe evolution, the theory of evolution, and he has made a case for God. But this is a very serious work. You have to know a lot of biology to completely understand it. If you are not a biologist, you can take your biologist friend's help to really appreciate the book. He has made a very valuable attempt. Either you have to make an attempt, convince people that the Quranic version is valid, or you have to this becomes a confrontation. You see, Quran tells you that God created the universe. Science tells you that this is a natural phenomena, it doesn't need God. There is obviously a conflict. However much, see, there are some people who have reconciled. I know of some people who have no problem between science and religion. They are quite religious and they are good scientists. Abdul Salam is one. I know that Abdul Salam was deeply religious, but he's a Sufi, he belongs to Sufi faith, but he was deeply religious. He led the prayers, Islamic prayers in scientific conferences. So, but he was a Nobel laureate, obviously great scientist. Actually, I claim Abdul Salam to be an Indian. He was born in UP, but then, of course, when partition happened, he went to Pakistan. So eventually he became a citizen of Pakistan. First of all, I believe that Pakistanis are Indians. We culturally we are the same, and there is no difference between us and them. Our music is the same, our culture is the same. Unfortunately, the country is divided, which has caused a lot of problem. But I am going off the tangent. But there are people who are both religious and scientific. They have reconciled. But there are people who have felt conflict and gone to one side or other side. But whatever you do it with understanding. You cannot just say evolutionary theory is wrong, because science is full of evolutionary theory. But if you want to say wrong, then you do it with strong arguments. You be intellectually rigorous. And that needs some intellectual effort. But if you don't want to believe theory of evolution, and you want to hold on to God created universe, it is perfectly fine. But if you don't present coherent arguments, then science will teach your children to turn away from your religious explanation and go towards scientific explanation. See, you may not have conflict, but next generations to come will have conflict. And then they may actually not heed to religious view if religion hasn't thought about these things carefully and put a counter argument which is as convincing as a scientific argument. That is the point I tried to make.
Thank you, Dr. Murthy. I think we are behind time, so I am unable to take few more questions. And already the email ID of Dr. Murthy is shared, so you can ask him directly if you have any question.
Yeah, Professor Murthy.
Yes.
As you rightly mentioned that science does not recognize religion, but somewhere down the line, religion does recognize science. So it's the religion, not the science, which is progressive, from my opinion, from my standpoint of view. The other thing you mentioned, and repeatedly, that science and religion are both complementary to each other. What is required is the better understanding of religion as well when you are studying science. As rightly Professor Hamid raised the questions that the marvels or the majesty of the Creator, if you want to understand, and that the proof has given by the very eminent scientists of the world about what Quran said, and they confirm that the science which we are witnessing today is already professed by the Holy Quran. So it is what, as you said, that there should be understanding between the various religions, and there should be a sense of accommodations and what you can say that the better understanding in the sense that when you said religion, so you put ethics and moral to one side, where on science side there is no mention of ethics and morals. This is where the conflict is. So science needs to accommodate the ethics and moral, whereas the religion already, which teaches about the marvels of the science and the majesty of science, that should be understood in a perspective. That is what my observation is. So we have had enough time, and I think what we need to do is, for the concluding part, I would like to invite Professor Zaid Khan, our Secretary General of Institute of Object Studies, my senior most colleague, and I would like to request him to come in and give his concluding remarks. Professor Zaid Khan, over to you, sir. Unmute your speaker, please.
Thank you very much. Are you hearing me? Yeah, I can hear you. At the outset, let me express my gratitude to Dr. Murthy, who has really given a wonderful explanation of the present time crisis situation. And this crisis has to be resolved. I am here to say only 2-3 things. One is that man is not guided simply by utilitarianism. Science basically concentrates on utilitarian paradigm of service to mankind. There is far more important thing which is only available with man, and that is the ethical values which decides as to what is good and what is bad. All religions stand and they confirm the ethical values which are universal. We should not go by the divisions in religions and by the divisions in various sects, etc., because at many times these are more artificial than real. So if we are trying to understand religion, we should go to the essence of religion, and essence of religion is very, very ethical, accommodative, universal, and eternal. And I would request Professor Murthy to consider these facts as well. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Right, sir. We are at the verge of closing this session, and thank you again, Professor Murthy and Imtiaz Sahab, for conducting this program. And of course, Rajesh, congratulations for your achievement. You overcame the obstacles of the caste and class, and that is the achievement. I don't know what is your research theme is, but definitely I feel from my inner heart to congratulate you for your achievement. Thank you very much. Thank you everybody for contributing to this session.
Okay. Thank you very much and goodbye to all of you.
Thank you.